Bankers to be held to account but will not face jail. In other words, they're not being held to account. They're being told they can rob everyone they like and nothing's going to happen. New rules to hold individual bankers who do wrong to account will not result in jail but will still help to change culture, the financial minister has said, who's bought and paid for by the banks, of course. Pascal Donoghue said yesterday that he is working on legislation to bring in a senior accountability regime. They're taking the piss again for prominent figures in financial services companies. The rules are being introduced as a response to the tracker mortgage scandal where banks overcharged thousands of their own customers. This resulted in almost 100 people losing their homes and caused significant financial hardship on thousands more. The final report from the central bank found more than 40,000 people were affected and not one single person has been held to account. Not even a man or a woman has been held to account. Mr. Donoghue, bought and paid for by the banks, told an event hosted by IBEC, a business lobby group, that regulators will not be able to take criminal proceedings against individuals under SIR. However, he said that the new rules will be strong and it will help to dampen wrongdoing in the sector. In other words, you can carry on doing it because this'll make you say, oh, I'm not going to do anything that, because you know you're not going to jail, so you're going to carry on doing anything and everything you want, aren't you? The sanctions of the SIR regime will be civil in nature. In other words, no accountability whatsoever. I would appreciate they will either be around fines or the inability of individuals to work in those roles in the future. In other words, oh, we're going to transfer you from just deputy bad guy. We're going to make you top bad guy. We're changing you. We're moving you because you've done such a good job of robbing the general public. If they are found to be in breach of the legal requirements that we have of them, he said. In other words, utter rubbish as usual. And as if to back that up, scam victims mocked and misled by action fraud. You mean those tasked with investigating the crooks are actually a bunch of crooks themselves? Well, you could have knocked me over with a feather. Staff at an action fraud call centre referred to victims as morons, screwballs and psychos. Fraud helpline staff working for the City of London Police, which is its own separate entity, it's its own sovereign area, it's nothing to do with the UK, let's never forget that. It's scam that we've been scammed for over 400 years. Are misleading victims into believing their cases will be solved, according to an investigation by The Times. An undercover probe into action fraud, the main reporting body for scams in the UK. Well, you know, if you're going to protect yourself, you've got to put someone in a position where, if anything does get reported, you're in charge of that, so you can just stick it under the carpet. I digress. Found that staff are being told not to inform victims that the majority of cases are dismissed by employees or by a computer algorithm. 5 million savers in danger of losing retirement funds to scammers. Victims of fraud are told to report the crime to action fraud, who will just bury it under the carpet or tell you they're going to solve it, tell you they're even going to look at it, tell you they're going to read the documentation, and then just ignore it and carry on with the scam because they're all funded by the banks. You know, can we see where we've got the major problem? It's not what you think, it's actually the banks, which of course I know a lot of that's what you thought anyway, but which is overseen by the City of London Police 4 years ago. The service was outsourced to a firm called Concentrix. A Times reporter found that many of the staff were school leavers earning just above the minimum wage of £8.50. Managers mocked victims, referring to them as morons, screwballs and psychos, while staff were told to mislead customers into believing that they were talking to police officers. If a victim's bank details have been stolen, the case is filed as a crime report only if the bank refuses to reimburse them. If the bank has paid them back or has yet to make a decision, the case is unlikely to be pursued. In other words, brushed under the carpet by those it's put in the position to brush it under the carpet. Michael Rogers, The City of London Police training manager told staff, when it comes to the police, you'll find they do absolutely everything in their power to avoid doing work. They're the most useless bunch of people. Well, I couldn't agree more. So there is some actual truth coming out from the action fraud bunch of crooks. When it comes to fraud, they will literally hand people over a leaflet and say, contact action fraud, knowing that all that we can do for people is take a report and we can't do anything else. I was sent this by a friend in the Philippines. Oil companies are again cutting fuel prices this week with the new per litre rates taking effect 6 a.m. today. Gasoline will decrease by 80 centavos per litre, diesel by P1 litre, and kerosene by I'm taking that's 1.15 litre. Phoenix Petroleum Philippines Inc. had their price rollback on Saturday last week. Oil companies cut the prices of gasoline by 1.45 per litre, diesel by 60 centavos litre, and kerosene by 1 whatever it is per litre. This is a genuine report. Drop in fuel this week in the Philippines. Now, this should be a good example of what the UK should be doing for its motorists. Just shows how the public in the UK are getting screwed over and have not got a backbone to say no and stop taking their bullshit word. The Philippines is a third world country and have the balls to say, we're not listening. Our president is truly standing up for the people, not you, your lying, cheating scumbag of a prime minister who has the interests of the corporations. And of course he does, because he's bought and paid for by corporations, as are all prime ministers. But we can narrow it down to one corporation in particular, the banking corporation. FDA, over 6,000 dead from puberty blocking drug for transgender children. Now can you see what all this transgender bullshit's about? It's so that they can get the kids on drugs that'll kill them. It's part of the depopulation program, which has been going on for a long time, as most of you know. Parents of kids with gender dysphoria not warned about dangers of hormone blockers. A drug used to block puberty in children with gender dysphoria is responsible for the death of over 6,300 people, according to the Food and Drugs Administration, another bought and paid for corporation, of course. The Christian Post reports leuprolide acetate, Lupron, is being prescribed off-label for use in children who have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, despite the lack of formal FDA approval for that purpose. The drug is clinically approved for treatment of precocious puberty, a condition where children start their pubertal process at an abnormal early age, and the blockers is administered for a short time until the proper age. The outlet continues. See, it's always been that plan all along. And now we're going to touch on a subject which you all know is close to my heart, for the likes of Mickey Summers and so forth. Pope's words difficult to reconcile with victims, that Vatican's lack of cooperation with abuse inquiry. Leicester United Kingdom. It was very disappointing that the Vatican failed to give a testimony during an investigation into sex abuse in the Catholic Church in England and Wales, according to the lead counsel to the inquiry. Well, what do you expect? It's always a cover-up, as we all know. Now, say that you got caught, buying cocaine. You'd probably get done by the police, wouldn't you? But if you're an MP, it's a little bit different. MP Keith Vaz suspended after offering to buy cocaine for male escorts. In other words, he's a dirty, filthy pervert. But because he's an MP... oh, well, you can't come into work, but you can still claim your wages. That's not a problem. We're not going to tell the police no, because we don't do that to our own MPs. Member of paedophiles, as we know, are protected. Disgraced MP Keith Vaz has been suspended from Parliament after MPs approved a recommendation he should be banned for offering to buy cocaine for 2 male prostitutes. The Committee of Standards recommended the Labour MP be suspended from the Commons for 6 months after he was found to have expressed willingness to purchase cocaine for others. So, if you're an MP, you can buy drugs, it's not a problem. You can buy male escorts if you're that way inclined. Not a problem. You won't lose your job. You won't lose your pay. Oh, but, you're not coming into the house of corruption for 6 months. But after that, it'll all be forgotten. In fact, you'll probably be back before 6 months because we tend to do that and then let them back in anyway. Like, when they kick that Amber Rudd out and then less than 3 or 4 months later, she's back in a position of stupidity again. Cannabis oil treating epilepsy 173 years ago. Now, I haven't got the subject. These are just some people quotes about it, but you can log into Reddit if you want to read the subject itself. That was a very interesting read. It's amazing how medicine was being experimented with a couple of 100 years ago. We shouldn't have to be rediscovering things that were common knowledge for hundreds of years. I hate to bring this up and it's going to be a little bit of a rant, but I hate that big tobacco and the US government made cannabis illegal because they hated Mexico so much and fabricated the reefer madness lie to scare the American people from and make them hate Mexicans. All of those years that we could have been using natural hemp fibres for a myriad of products, including biodegradable plastic. Now the guy, whoever it is that wrote that, clearly has no idea. They knew that cannabis cured cancer. They knew that cannabis cured endless other conditions. They knew it could be used for endless things. The Ford company made a car out of it that ran on the cannabis oil. So don't give us any bullshit. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but he thinks he does. But let's face it, the reason they did what they did was because they knew it cured cancer. I'm not saying every type of cancer, but it cures many types of cancer. And if it's that you can't find one that's specific for your particular type of cancer, then there are other versions of it that you can find. I'm not going to mention into it. We've gone into that quite enough. So, well, and besides, time's ticking away. When the people fear the government, we have tyranny. When the government fear the people, you have liberty. Thomas Jefferson. On this date in 1993, Vince Foster went to Fort Marcy Park and shot himself 3 times in the back of the head to avoid testifying against Hillary Clinton. Aye. Up for the fight? I don't think you are. British winter get weighed. Fracking to be banned after U-turn by Tories. Huge victory for eco-campaigners and residents who complained about tremors caused by drilling. Government had extolled shale gas industry, but now cannot rule out future unacceptable impacts. Green groups welcome decision to shut down fossil fuel industry. That's not fossil fuel, that's another lie that we've been told. Well, pretty much it for that. The Daily Fail. Boris, we don't need you, Nigel. Johnson dismisses Farage ultimatum as Mail poll shows crucial northern swing voters will shun Brexit party. And this is all propaganda they're trying to put in your head so that you shun the Brexit party. Not that it makes a difference because they've already fixed it so it goes exactly the way they want. We've never had a real election in the UK that's not been fixed, ever. Even when it looks to be against the odds, it's by that's design. Anything that's major is by design, and that's the way it goes. Land of hopeless and let's pray glory. Yes, well, we know that they've got no hope. Mirror. England, our time is scrum. Well, you don't look like it's scrum now, does it? Tony Christie, I fear that I've got dementia. Yeah, but how do you know that? Are you sure? You're not? Are you sure? Exclusive. Tax on sick storm. NHS car park vultures. 46 million extra. Scandal of patients, staff and families forking out more to fat cat firms. By design, as we all know, it's all utterly and totally corrupt. And it always has been. But it does look like more and more are starting to realise it. So with luck, we won't have to go on for this shithole much longer. The Times. Johnson to ban fracking. Let's wait and see. Tories ditch key energy policy to boost green credentials and head off Labour. Oh, so it's not because it's good for the people, it's for ulterior motives. Well, what a shock. Win or lose, this will be the best year yet for sport. Yes, what they mean by that. This will be the best year yet for the brainwashing that we've done and the herd mentality we're instilling in the general population. And I went on about that yesterday, but just bear in mind, everything like this is all herd mentality that they're pushing. And at the end, in fact, maybe in a bit, I shall just pop something up which comes quite into the scene there. Now, if you look on Snopes, which of course is their version where they say this never happened, he never said this, apparently he never said this, however I can absolutely see it being said. Henry Kissinger, in a speech to the World Health Organization Council on Eugenics, February 25th, 2009, once the herd accepts mandatory forcible vaccination, it's game over. They will accept anything. Forcible blood or organ donation for the greater good. We can genetically modify children and sterilise them for the greater good. Control sheep minds and you control the herd. Vaccine makers stand to make billions, and many of you in this room today are investors. It's a big win-win. We thin out the herd and the herd pays us for providing extermination services. Now, what's for lunch, huh? Dr. Henry Kissinger. And now you see why they push the herd mentality so much. Independent, anything but, of course. Will Farage help or hinder Johnson? The end of fracking. Campaigners celebrate victory over energy industry as ministers announce a ban on the controversial drilling in England. We'll see. The Telegraph. Tories promise election tax cut. What? Yeah. Right, so there's an election coming up, so we're going to give you tax cuts. Oh, and now we're in. I tell you what, here's that tax cut, but we're going to have to take this back off you because this is a new tax we made up, and it's called the stupidity tax for all those that stupidly voted thinking that we were actually going to give you something and not take it back off you. The stupidity tax. There's always one. Homeopaths warning mothers not to have children vaccinated. Investigation reveals. You mean vaccinations are bad for you? Everyone that's been saying that vaccines are part of the kill agenda has been right all along? Well, you could have knocked me down with a feather. Express. Tony Christie, memory loss make me fear I have dementia. But are you sure, Tony? Are you sure? I know. Queen, rugby heroes have inspired the country and it's working for the herd mentality so we can soon have these dumb animals slaughtered. And of course, while we're talking about, let's not forget, there's been millions and millions protesting in Poland about forced vaccinations they're trying to bring in. And let's not forget, the scumbag over here, he's been trying to say we're going to try and implement forced vaccination. Oh, but it's only for the kids, because that's what it'll start off. It's for the kids' benefit. We need to have forced vaccinations because the vaccines don't work. So we've got to make sure everyone gets it because that way everyone will be dead sooner or later. But we'll bring it in as for the children and then we'll make it mandatory for everyone. So, oh, you've not had your vaccinations. Oh, you've got 72 vaccinations to catch up with if it's not increased by now. I know. After Farage challenges PM to form a Leave alliance, Boris, vote Tory or you'll get Corbyn. Well, that's quite a threat, actually, isn't it? But it's also correct. Waste of paper, Star. Money off your great Star or Sunday Star or tomorrow and Monday and, well, it's 70p. Jeez, some actually pay for that. Wow. Scrum on England, I don't think they've got a chance. Mind you, that this was made just after the end of the match, so I know that they lost anyway, but there you go. Ricky Gervais, jibe. Flakes make me millions. Abs looks just fabs. Okay. Waste of paper. The Guardian. We'll name it The Guardian because that'll mean it gives you the general dumbnesses. I mean, the public out there, the idea that we're actually gardening something when in actual fact we're just here as a propaganda mouthpiece for whoever pays the money, which of course is the banks. Fracking banned in UK after government U-turn. Okay, we'll see. PM rejects Farage's offer of electoral pact. He's back. Tutankhamun returns to the UK. The utter scum. Strictly stars. DD's removed. Jeez. That is just the scummiest paper there is. Shirley, never have boob implants, girls. Warning after 4-hour op. Back on TV tonight. Well, I won't be watching that, I can assure you of that. FT, earthquake fears spark UK fracking ban. Yeah, we'll see. Tutankhamun's back. Brexit Party vows to stand in bulk of seats as Johnson rejects election pact. And as a final bit of news here, England Rugby fans demand replay as they didn't get the result they wanted. You know what I'm thinking here, don't you? Thousands of England Rugby fans are calling for the World Cup final against South Africa to be played again because they didn't get the result they wanted. South Africa beat England 32-12 in Yokohama this morning, but immediately after their final whistle, England fans began calling for a replay because they say nobody saw the result coming. Many English fans are claiming that more than half of their players didn't realise what they were playing for, and if they did, they would have won. Hundreds of protesters have already begun gathering outside Parliament in Westminster, waving flags and shouting stuff. One protester told a reporter for the BBC, anyone who thinks that result should stand is right-wing and thick-hand and Nazi and also racist. Meanwhile, Liberal Democrat leader Joe Swinson has said England should simply ignore the result and just pretend it never happened. Saw this, I thought he had to... PC, Rob Banks. I'll leave you to make the most of that while you can. Words of wisdom, Alfred E. Newman. Nowadays, the only time a politician is telling the truth is when he calls another politician a liar. None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Never a truer word said.